My name's Bill McIntyre, and I'm a toy inventor, and that is still a real job. My little company, Atomocom, we create interactive toys and games, and we also help other companies prototype their electronic toy and game ideas. And last year at UX Week 2012, absolutely wonderful. We talked about inventing and the process, and we debuted Atomocom's flagship product, Little Atomo. And so we're just going to refresh everybody's memory with 10 seconds of Little Atomo. It's Little Atomo, the amazing thinking robot from Atomocom.
What's he doing?
He's thinking.
What's he thinking about?
Space stuff, science stuff, robot stuff. Little Atomo from Atomocom. Batteries not included. Awesome. So that's Little Atomo, and we love him. We're not going to talk about him so much this time, but he'll come up later in the presentation. This year, we're going to talk about play patterns. Right? We're going to ask, what is a play pattern? How do they work? And how can they make interactive experiences better? Right? And before we can do that, we really have to look at play. Right? What is play? And it's actually kind of hard to define. I did a lot of good reading on it. One of the best definitions I found is George Santayana, the philosopher, defined play as whatever is done spontaneously and for its own sake. And you might even want to add in, and is fun. But that's the core of it. Play has some trappings. It has these tools, right? Toys and games are very familiar objects of play. Jesse Schell, who wrote an excellent book I'll refer to a couple of times, The Art of Game Design, spends 20 pages trying to define what is play, what is a game, what is a toy. And he comes down to a toy is an object you play with. A good toy is an object that is fun to play with. And a game is a problem-solving activity approached with a playful attitude. And we're going to talk about that attitude some more, too, because that becomes very important. Right? So what is play for, right? All animal species, at least mammals, tend to have play and engage in play, primates especially. Play is the work of childhood, right? Master educator Maria Montessori, very focused on play and learning and the tie between the two. Master game developer Ralph Koster said fun is just another word for learning. And I think that hits the nail right on the head. Because play is the work of childhood, you have to think of children almost as scientists, right? Play is their laboratory. Everything is new to them, and play is how they experiment, basically testing things out, what everything does. So when you're a child, because everything's new, this play is how you learn not only how you discover sound and vision and cause and effect and motion, but it's actually how you explore relationships. I've misspelled dynamics, but it's relationship dynamics, very important. So we're going to look at play, right? What are the properties of play? Importantly, what makes play different from anything else? What makes it different from work? And it turns out one of the most important parts of this is attitude, right? And there was an experiment run where researchers studied preteen children's description of their daily activities, and many of the kids described everything they did as play, or in terms of play. And there was a group of kids who actually described everything they did in terms of work, and even though the activities were essentially identical, right? So attitude's very important. And how do you make that transformation? How do you transform work into play? What's the difference, right? Well, play has these properties, and one of them is very important. It's spontaneous, and it's voluntary, and it's free. And we're going to look at that as in freedom, right? So play is voluntary, right? There's a very big difference between go play outside and the floor is lava, right? Or let's go ride bikes, right? All three of those things have a very different feel. And go play outside is sort of the least play-like of all those, right? It's not spontaneous. Play is free, as in freedom. See, when you're playing, you're in control of the experience. You get to choose the play pattern, what you're going to do. You're going to choose the theme, whether it's, Highlander or Star Wars or Under the Sea. And you're going to choose the narrative, right? Forces coming together, coming apart, and we'll talk some more about that. One of the most important aspects of play is it's free from consequence, right? There are no real-life penalties for the way you play, right? If you lose a game of hopscotch, everybody's still going to treat you the same. It's all going to be okay. And that leaves you free to experiment, right? You're actually free to try different strategies. And again, if you go back to looking at the child as a scientist, that freedom to experiment with trying things different ways is critical. On the flip side, play is also free from reward, right? So if you tell somebody, if you win this game, we're going out for ice cream. If you beat that Susie Durkins at baseball, we are getting sundaes. Like, that changes the whole dynamic of play, right? That causes some stakes. It makes you anxious. You're not going to try and experiment with new strategies. You're going to stick to what you know works. And so that's a very important aspect too. Play doesn't really have rewards other than its own self, right? So now we're going to look at play patterns. And one of the first people to coin this term was sociologist Mildred Parton. And she wrote a dissertation in 1932 called The Stages of Play. And it was one of the very first formal studies of looking at the way children interact with each other. And she came up with a number of categories, and I've kind of cherry-picked the major ones here. And the first she looked at, sort of the basic level, is solitary play. It's very simple. You're playing with blocks, you're playing with your dolls, and it's just you by yourself, right? And then she sort of decided a higher level of this was parallel play, and this is something that occurs in 2 to 4-year-olds. And what they'll do is they'll observe a kid playing with a truck or a ball, and they'll pick up their own toy, a similar toy, and they'll play with a truck or a ball as well. And there's not direct interaction, they're just kind of checking each other out. But this parallel play is, again, it's the next step, aside from playing all by your lonesome. And it's, there are other parallels. It's like bowling or golf, where you're not actually interacting with the ball at the same time. You're just doing the same thing at the same time as your playmate. And what Parton saw as sort of the highest level of play was what's called cooperative play, right? Activity becomes shared and organized. And so, like saying, let's all play circus. I'm going to be the ringmaster, and you be the lion tamer, and you check tickets at the box office. And these roles emerge, right? This group dynamic emerges. You all share the narrative. You're all sharing the theme at that point. Group identity can emerge, and all these different aspects basically take place that can only occur with group play. And that's very important. So after Parton, a number of sociologists, toy companies and inventors and researchers and educators started to use this terminology, play pattern. And basically, play pattern is a method of play that's different and separate from the narrative or theme, right? The theme can be spies or saving the galaxy, or where there's a big wedding. The narrative is, of course, what happens, right? The good guys win, the bad guys win. We're all going on a road journey together. But the pattern itself is basically what the play activity really is. And the root of all play is exploratory play, they call it, right? And it's basically infancy to almost age 2, but it's really about discovery. It's how sound works, how motion works, right? You're born, mom turns on the lights, and everything is new. What's that shiny thing? And so it's all about mirrors and mobiles and what they call manipulatives, which are busy boxes. It's about learning cause and effect, right? And that's very important. And the next play pattern that becomes very popular, very important, is transformative play, creative play, right? And that involves painting and drawing and sculpting. And at its root level, it's really not about creating this beautiful work of art. It's really more like, I'm going to turn this canvas purple, right? Like, that's important. It's cause and effect. You're changing the world. You're changing things. Same with that. You're like, I'm going to take this lump of clay and I'm going to squeeze it, and it's just going to squish, right? And that's learning that's very important. And then you sort of work on to the next steps of, I'm going to represent my family. I'm going to draw my house. And then beyond that is you're going to draw things you think of or desire, like that sweet car or the fighter jet I want to be flying, or my new X-Wing. It's that sort of level of play that you build up on. Construction play is a big part of this, right? It's blocks, it's Legos. I mean, you can all the way to Minecraft. And again, it starts with cause and effect, as I'm going to stack these 10 things up and see what happens when I break them down. And you can basically build up to, or I'm going to build a whole village with my friends, right? That's very important. Another very common play pattern that breaks down all sorts of different ways is physical play, right? Movement, you're swinging, you're climbing on the monkey bars, dance, sports, and something the toy companies call skill play. And we'll take a look at what skill play is.
It's a new thing, it's a fun thing. It's a swing wing.
It's a what?
It's a swing wing. It's a wing wing. A brand new transparent fun thing.
It's a what?
It's a swing wing. A fun thing. And now it's
Right. So now it's your favorite store, right? The swing wing. But that's something that calls it's something you're doing for its own sake. It's its own activity. You can become a master of the swing wing, and it really doesn't affect your life in other ways. But you have that knowledge, right? And the next my favorite actually play category, play pattern, is called pretend play, and it's a really, really deep sort of vein you can mine for interactive experience. Pretend play always has two elements: narrative, right? What's going to happen, and that's not something you necessarily plan out at the beginning, but there's a series of events that occur. And it has a theme, and the theme is very changeable. It's very based on your society or the things you've been told or the stories you know. The root of pretend play is role-playing, right? You explore what would it be like to be a hero or a monster or a parent or a teacher. And the root of role-playing, right, when you really get down to it, is nurturing play, right? It's having a baby doll. It's sort of the first role-playing children tend to do, and it's exploring the relationship that's most important to them, right? It's my parent. And as having a baby doll, it lets you, explore what it's like to love someone, to take care of them, to tell them no, to scold them, and to see what all those things really mean. And that role reversal is very essential to learning and development. Nurturing extends very quickly to pets, right? Teddy bears, Furby, My Pet Monster. It doesn't necessarily have to be a baby, but the relationship between you and that toy is essentially the same, right? It's a nurturing play pattern. Beyond that, you get into things like doll play. Post G.I. Joe, who coined the term action figure play. And that's one of the highest forms of role play because you play multiple characters at the same time, right? You can be both Batman and Catwoman and explore their motivations and what's going on and the relationship between them. You can be both parents. You can be all sorts of things. And that dynamic, letting you explore all sides of a situation, really adds a lot to the value of that. One of the patterns for doll play, something very basic, is people explore social outcomes, right? So it starts with everyday situations. Meal times are one of the most complicated things you'll do as a kid, right? There's all these rules and this order to things. Household vignettes, it's hi, honey, I'm home, or mommy's mad. And it's like, how do we all work that out and stay together and stay happy? How can you resolve that at the end of the day? Special occasions are the next, right? There's weddings, somebody's very special, or like birthdays, it's Teddy's birthday, I'm saving the galaxy, that's a special occasion. And all these things involve like planning and relationships and making sure the right people are doing the right things, right? And to enhance this even further, toy companies for a while back, and it's really time immemorial, introduced doll houses, right? And doll houses and action play sets do two things. They enhance the narrative, right? So you get reinforcement of having furniture and objects and props, which enhance role play. More importantly, it gives a child a sense of control, right? It's a deeper play experience if I can control everything that goes on. The car arrives, I've got furniture here, and that's all going up in the bedroom. And so we're going to look at two examples of doll houses and action play sets.
What's going on here?
A housewarming.
Right. Now, Mattel's famous Barbie has a brand new dream house with special furniture that's fun to put together and even a sliding door that really opens. Inside, there's a big new closet with hangers for all the Barbie costumes you buy. Best of all, Barbie's new dream house is lots bigger now. You can actually change the size and shape of the rooms, like this, or lots of other ways. You'll love Barbie's wonderful dream house. It really is a dream. And here's Barbie's fashion shop, the perfect place to have fashion shows with Barbie, Midge, and Skipper. When you're through playing, the fashion shop and Barbie's new dream house both fold up, so you can take them with you wherever you go. You can tell they're Mattel.
They're swell.
Right? So that's fantastic. You've got a place to let all these dramas unfold. We've got another really good example of the dollhouse action set play set.
From all over the neighborhood, adventure team members and equipment arrive for the opening of G.I. Joe headquarters. Flash, a radio message from the tower. Adventure team member caught in quicksand. Get the maps. Here's the location. Get going, Joe, and good luck. Back in the tower, Joe signals, help on the way. We'll help get there in time. Create your own adventures. G.I. Joe Adventure Team headquarters. G.I. Joes and ATVs sold separately.
Right? Awesome. So we've seen both of these, right? And we look at these and we say, well, what do these have in common? And there's one element that jumps right out at me, and that's the thing they both have is hangers, right? And they both have a place to store your outfits, a place to keep your gear. And outfits are really important, right? When you're role-playing, when you're pretend playing, your role becomes who you are. You need your props, and those props lead to different narrative outcomes, right? And there's a really great example of this that's no longer made that I'd like to run here.
Bold and brave, strong and true, streak of lightning from the blue. Captain Action.
Captain Action, so super powerful you can change him into 9 of the mightiest superheroes of all time. Change Captain Action's uniform and face mask and he's Batman, fighting crime with his batarang. He's the mysterious Phantom. He's the Lone Ranger. He's Flash Gordon, and he's Superman, flying to the rescue. Get Captain Action, complete with uniform, sword, and ray gun. Then get his 9 other great superhero outfits. They each come with action-ready uniform, face mask, and realistic equipment.
Fighting evil, that's his creed. Thundering power, lightning speed. Captain Action.
He's ideal.
Right? That's ideal. And he's a great toy because not only are you role-playing, but your doll is also role-playing at that point, right? He's exploring all these different social situations that he never necessarily, do as either Batman or the Lone Ranger. You can be both, right? And that sort of leads us right, so we've got, Barbie's Dream House, we've got G.I. Joe's Action Team Adventure Headquarters. And that leads us to some important questions that toy makers and sociologists think about a lot, right? And that is, are there differences in the way boys and girls play? It's a hot topic. There are a lot of great newspaper articles, in the last couple of years especially. It would make a great presentation by itself, but we're just going to talk about it really quickly. There's a caveat, right? I'm a toy inventor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not even a full-time employee. But it's something I think that needs attention. And that is, what we found is all children draw from the same essential play patterns, right? Not just children, but they've actually done studies on chimpanzees and rhesus monkeys, some at Emory University and some back in the 80s, where all children, even primate or human, tend to play with each of the play patterns. There's some different degree in how much each tend to play with a nurturing pattern versus an action play and a skill play pattern and these things, but they're all very common to all of us. Now, that being said, your narratives and your themes come from the world around you. They come from your parents, they come from your friends, they come from the movies you've seen and the books you've read. And those themes and narratives tend to diverge based on the culture you're in. There's a great book about this, Pink Brain, Blue Brain. Neuroscientist Lise Elliott has a great quote I like. She said, parents reinforce gender-specific play, and that very tiny brain differences tend to get amplified by culture, especially by marketing. And so it's, there are differences, they're really subtle, they're really small. And just the reason I bring that up is, when your creative experiences of any kind, be very, very conscious about limiting gender-based roles, right? Role play is such a big part of childhood and learning itself. It's just really important to be cognizant of that. And as a company, Atomocom is also cognizant of such gender and role-based differences. And so we're introducing our newest product, Miss Atomo, for girls.
New from Atomocom, it's Miss Atomo, the amazing thinking robot for girls.
She's thinking.
Math is easy. Science is for girls.
Miss Atomo comes with a fashionable array of shoes and accessories.
Shoes? Why does she need shoes?
Miss Atomo from Atomocom, batteries not included.
Right, there we are, Miss Atomo for girls with fashion shoes and accessories, right? Which brings us to an important question. So how do you we've got all these play patterns we've taken a look at and their experiences within themselves, right? How can you extend that? What can you take away that's important, right? And so in creating this presentation, there's actually a new toy that's come out this week. And the teaser, I haven't played with it. It looks great. The teaser commercial for it touches on a lot of these points. And so I'd just like to tease that very quickly, just because it's an incredible piece of commercial making. I don't know how it's actually going to be, but it touches on a lot of the points we talked about during the presentation, right? Theme and narrative is very, very strong with this Disney, what's it called, Disney Infinite, right? It promises you can choose your own. You've got that sort of flexibility to like, I'm going to be under the sea, I'm going to be in outer space, I'm going to be in the Magic Kingdom. Theme and narrative, you know, and they're characters you're familiar with. So, you know, the Pirates and Monsters, Inc. and all those guys, their themes and narratives become part of your play pattern, right? Play is free from consequences, right? And that's something inherent in a lot of video games in general, but it really is, you know, nothing bad's going to happen to you if you don't play very well. It's about experimentation, right? So there's this concept of a toy construction set, toy box set. It's being able to build your own play experiences, and that makes it very play-like. That makes it very engaging. Something we talked about before, it's very important to play as an experience. Losing doesn't actually punish or cost the participant, right? In keeping your interactive experiences play-like, it's very important to keep that in mind, that there's no penalties. And also, there are no inherent rewards other than play itself, right? If you have an experience that offers a cash prize for doing well or excelling or outselling the other salespeople or something, it's work. And that can be engaging, but it's not play-like. And that's a very important point. Players have autonomy, right? So in Disney Infinite, you know, it appears, and I don't know how it really plays out, but, you know, it appears you have the ability to do a vast array of things, and it's under your control, it's at your volition. That makes it play-like, right? It's autonomous, I can control what's going on. Play is, of course, voluntary, right? Spontaneous, if you can do the thing you want at the moment you want, that's sort of the height of being play-like. Multiplayer, right? As Parton suggested, one of the highest forms of engaging play is being able to play together and with other people. And really, to wrap it up, you know, the most important thing about play is it's fun, right? Is if you're designing an experience, testing it with other people, observing their reactions, fun is key. Fun is the heart of play. So thanks, everybody, for giving me your time, and I appreciate it.